Welcome to SMU Stories, the podcast where we dive into the journeys of remarkable alumni from Southern Methodist University who have excelled in the world of business. I'm your host, Mitch Brown, and each episode will uncover the secrets, challenges, and triumphs of these extraordinary individuals. From entrepreneurs who've turned dreams into multi-million-dollar enterprises to executives leading global corporations, SMU has nurtured a community of innovators, leaders, and visionaries. Join us as we sit down with the alumni who have walked the same halls, studied in the same classrooms, and emerged as industry pioneers. Get ready for insights, inspiration, and actionable advice as we explore the unique SMU stories that have shaped the business landscape. Whether you're a current student, an aspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the power of the SMU network, this podcast is for you. So grab your headphones, settle in, and let's embark on a journey through the compelling narratives of SMU alumni who are making waves in the business world. This is SMU Stories. Let's begin. SMU Stories is brought to you by Security National Bank of Texas, SMU Cox School of Business, Morrison Seeger Venture Capital Partners, and Hilltop Property Tax. You like my ponies up in the back?
I do. I'm honored to do this on the eve of the TCU game.
I know. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to tell your SMU story. We were just laughing. This is the eve of the TCU game, so spirits are high. Big week coming up.
That's right.
But as we always do when we start our episodes, please introduce yourself to our audience who doesn't know you yet.
Yeah. Appreciate you having me. My name is Chris Alfano, and I'm the CEO of 360 Mining. Graduated SMU in 2016. Was a finance major and came to SMU actually from Southern California in 2012.
Amazing. And so we got a few routes to go through today. You've got quite the resume in a short period of time from leaving the Hilltop, and we can't miss on the fact that you're a California kid who's now deep in the heart of Texas, working with the gas and energy world. But so as a California kid from the beach, how do you find SMU? How did it come on your radar? Tell us a little bit about your college selection process.
Yeah, definitely. Don't hold it against me. Not many kids from Manhattan Beach find themselves neck deep in Texas oil and gas, but definitely happy to find greener pastures here in the great state of Texas. I'd say, when I was graduating high school was really, I grew up in beach town, California. It's kind of like a bubble, right? Everyone jokes it's a bubble in Manhattan Beach and the South Bay. And so I only actually applied to colleges out of state, knowing that if I didn't get out for college, I'd probably never get to see all the great things that could be outside of California. Really, SMU stood out as a strong business school, which was like my number one requirement, as well as a great time. Right, I saw that it was the football and the tailgating and the basketball and the Greek life, or all things I was looking for. Was a great education and a great experience, which I definitely had.
And yeah, I think it's about as well balanced of a school environment as you can find, right? From the right size, great location, great education, but a proximity to a big city and business opportunities. So those hit those check marks. Were you looking anywhere else within Texas, or was it kind of once you stumbled across SMU, you knew that was maybe the right spot for you?
Yeah, I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer in high school, I must say. I begrudgingly was not accepted into Baylor University. Luckily, that was far lower on my list of target schools. I still hold true to this day that they fat fingered my application. But very fortunate to have gotten in.
Yeah.
Baylor, looking at Baylor and a couple schools in the Midwest and Northern California as well. But SMU was always my top choice, and so I was again very fortunate to get in and get a great education.
Glad we got you. So you mentioned business school was a big factor in your decision. Did you always have kind of an entrepreneurial bug? Did you maybe think of yourself as, going the investment banking, the finance route, or what was it about business at a young age and or Cox School that kind of was a guiding light as you kind of started to move your way from high school into college into a potential career?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I would say I definitely have always had an entrepreneurial bug. Mowed the neighborhood lawns growing up, and
Yeah.
opportunistically flipped surfboards that I would find on Craigslist. When I was like 12
Yes.
years old. So I always had the knack of, I guess working for myself and making some money that
Mhm.
way. I think, certainly an ebb and flow in college, between entrepreneurialism or, the more traditional investment banking, private equity route. And I did an internship with JP Morgan, all the while a couple of my, fraternity brothers had just started a business and were, doing very well. And
Mhm.
that was like inspiring to me, kind of tugging at my entrepreneurial roots. All the while, like at the big bank, it just wasn't really my cup of tea. Um,
Mhm.
and so senior year was really networking around, seeing what other opportunities that maybe were less traditional could look like, and was very fortunate to leverage my SMU connections to meet a hedge fund manager in Dallas, to which we started a company together when I was a senior in college. And that was kind of, quick, it kind of phased me out of college into the, real world,
Right.
first real company that we built together, in 2016 through 2020.
So stepping back a little bit there, you know, where did you know this was an opportunity? How did that even come about? Right? You maybe was it more of an interest in the hedge fund side, or we'll touch more on the technology and the company that you came up with.
Yep.
Was that a proficiency that you had? How did that all kind of line up?
No, I mean just happenstance, right? I think I met this guy purely because he was in finance. He was working in hedge
Hmm.
funds. That was obviously interesting to me. Our first meeting was him giving me, feedback on my resume. And then
Hmm.
he, said something along the lines of, oh, by the way, I've been working in private credit for the last 20 years, and this is a very antiquated industry, and the way things are done is very old fashioned. There's got to be a lot of ways we can, make this better. And so half our conversation was kind of talking about his own kind of ideas and problems he saw. And then, you know, I think we talked about supercomputers or something. And I'm like, well, I have access to all the faculty. And so I'm
Yeah.
not an engineer, but I reached out to the engineering school and got connected to the right guy. And I remember Ethan and I, the hedge fund manager, came to campus and sat down in this office of one of these professors, and I had no idea. Neither of us had any idea what that guy was talking about. But
Really.
one thing led to another, and we started building out a pilot and just kind of ideating together. And certainly my background was not in software at the time or coding or anything like that, but
Yeah.
definitely a hard worker. And we said let's give it a shot. And so it was an internship, really during my last semester, that was kind of like a minimum viable product viability test to
Hmm.
see if this could actually be a business. And 6 months we had some pretty good traction, and launched the company thereafter, and it was official, off to the races.
That's
But yeah, all
incredible. So
started from a resume feedback session,
yeah.
turned into really my first job.
And kind of met you at the right time, right? You kind of always knew the idea of starting something sounded attractive, but still had one foot in kind of a more traditional corporate role. So getting with someone who's established, who kind of has a little bit of a track record, but then you seem like to be a problem solver, right? He came to you with like what's broken in his industry, and you were all ears to help and ways to fix it, right? And so you do that pretty quickly, where some students might not know to go to the faculty and pull in the right people, which I imagine throughout your career is an important theme of finding the right person. What can you tell us a little bit more about Key Man Intelligence, what the company was, what you guys did, and then how that kind of started, and then since I believe you guys sold it, right? So kind of a little bit of that story.
Yeah, so Keyman Intelligence was a SaaS platform for private credit, like particularly CLOs. So private credit hedge funds. Um, Not to get too deep into the weeds, but usually these portfolios can have hundreds of private borrowers, unlike publicly traded companies that have to follow a
Mm-hmm.
very standardized reporting of their financials. A lot of these private borrowers, don't. And so
Right.
you'd get a lot of disparate data, and every quarter you have these analysts having to take hundreds of PDFs and spread them in Excel, which lends itself to, mistakes and just a time suck that's very inefficient, to end up with a data set that's completely non-standardized, non-centralized, that you can't kind of run really any good analytics outside of Excel on. And so really that's what the company was started to solve, was how can we automate and extract and standardize important pieces of information from portfolio companies to assist the CLOs in their ability to analyze and make investment decisions. And so started with financials and expanded into credit agreements and investment memorandums and other places where there was valuable information that we could all extract and centralize. So like there was a online portal you could go in and log in and like look by borrower and see, all their information. And it was just, again, a tool to help analysts analyze and hedge funds make better decisions on their credit. And basically, the idea was to let analysts do what they do best, which is analyze, not, do manual labor of spreading financials.
Right. And it caught on pretty quick. I mean, we're looking 4 years later, you went from college student to co-founder to leader in software and probably a heavy dose of sales and operations, right? What was the product obviously worked. What was some highlights of that journey and some of the things you learned that you knew maybe the entrepreneur founder life is a good fit?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it helps when you start a company incubated inside of your customer, inside of the hedge fund. And so that really helped us iterate quickly and produce something that was actually valuable. We weren't building this in a silo at all and then having to test it in the market. Like we eat, slept, and breath inside the market, which is like our initial customer was the actual CLO. And then from there, we were able to kind of parlay that success into other, companies that would pay for the software. Definitely took a while to build it, right? I think it was a steep learning curve getting into something that was not what I studied at SMU at all. I mean, the financial part was, but the technology and machine learning and automation behind it was definitely foreign. I think what I really like about entrepreneurialism and startups is just every day is totally different. And so, you're not a cog in a massive wheel. You're solving new problems every single day. And those problems can be big, they can be small, and you have to prioritize what's, the best use, most important use of your time. And so, I mean, Keyman was a great place to sharpen that tool and build something, valuable with, seasoned businessmen that, had all the connections and definitely helped me get, 3 steps ahead.
And was the goal always to kind of build out to critical mass and then sell, or how did the next phase go to where you were moving on from Keyman?
Yeah, as with most, SaaS platforms, it's really what you're looking to do is build something, get some traction, grow that, and then ultimately exit, which we did in 2020. And kind of then turned right around to COVID. And that kind of one thing led to another, sold the company, kind of moved down to Austin with my wife and kids. And then, was looking for, what was I going to do next? And that's kind of what led to 360.
And so you did something in 4 years many people might not ever do, right? Go straight into founding a company and selling a company. And as you know, and I'm sure you talk to plenty of young people asking for advice, like what advice would you give to those students now who want to go right out of college and found a company, right? I know good, bad, and different. What kind of wisdom would you have that you wish you had known maybe that as you took that leap?
Yeah, I think, high risk, high reward. There's no guarantees in startups. Most fail. I would say you will learn, again, I'm I guess biased because I don't have any other experience, but I would say I learned a lot about a lot of different things in a lot of different departments: sales, marketing, customer support, every aspect of the business when it's, a small company like that. And so you get massive exposure. There's a lot on the line. You have to work, very hard. But I think it's extremely rewarding, whether it's a success or a failure. The experience you gain from entrepreneurialism is significant. And I would say, leverage your networks. I think that's one of the best aspects of SMU that I still lean on heavily today, and certainly did back then. Is, it's a lot of times it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And that's an old adage, but it really is true. And, if you can leverage people in your network that can help you get further faster, I think that's a great thing. And you return the favor and it all comes back around. So I would tell aspiring entrepreneurs, maybe looking to graduate Cox, of like, surround yourself with great people. Don't be afraid to reach out to, people older than you, alumni networks, professors that might be able to, help fill in the box. There's no such thing as a bad meeting. You never know when that might come around and be beneficial. Right. And then just prepare for a journey, because it always is. There's no guarantees.
Right. To that point, you mentioned, okay, you're in Austin with your family. COVID happens. You kind of have a blank landscape. What's going through your mind for the next idea, or where you want to take your career, and let that kind of tell the story of how 360 is formed, and a little bit about what you guys are doing today.
Yeah, definitely. So during kind of the COVID era of, lockdowns and kind of coming out of my last company, and then looking at, what have I spent 4 years doing, was, finance and technology. And then you have the COVID and the low interest rate environment and all the free money going around. I, like many millennials, kind of fell down the crypto rabbit hole, which turned into, Bitcoin only, rabbit hole. And
so that was all new for you, though, at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I've known about Bitcoin for a long time, but I've never really had the time to understand it and dive, deep into what actually is it and how is it different than all the other cryptos. And so kind of coming down that, I guess, rabbit hole, and coming out of that and just seeing what I think is something transformative from a technology perspective, knew I wanted to center my next venture around that, or have that be an aspect of it. And again, leaning on SMU network, started talking to other people that were in the industry, which led to, Bitcoin mining as something that I found fascinating, and which led to trying to, Bitcoin mine, for those that don't know, is just purely a data center operation. It produces compute, and you have to power that compute. And the cheaper you can power your data center, the better your margin is, the more insulated you are from bear markets, right? And so that led to 360 mining, which was the idea of saying, how can I get the cheapest possible input cost for my data center? And that meant vertically integrating all the way down to the energy source versus plugging into the grid and buying power, off the grid. And so 360 mining really started in 2021 as a upstream oil and gas producer in the Barnett Shale, where we took over existing gas wells just about 25 minutes north of Fort Worth, for the purpose of using that gas to generate electricity to power these data centers, all at the pad site.
Incredible. Was anyone else doing that at that time? What was kind of the aha moment of, hey, this is kind of how everyone's running in this lane, traditional plug into the grid. How can I go a step further and meet it at the source? And then, there's all this excess natural gas that maybe could be a utilization.
Yeah. I think, again, getting into, a financial model, you quickly could see how, and this was like the fever pitch of the Bitcoin mining bull market. I mean, the margins were just astronomical, and didn't really matter what you were paying for electricity, but all good things come to an end, and bull markets don't last forever. And so we looked at it like, how can we be insulated in a bear market? And so that's kind of what brought us to the oil field. I would say there were a few other companies doing natural gas Bitcoin mining at the time, but none of those companies were actually the owners and operators of wells themselves. And so we were kind of took it one step further to say, hey, instead of just going out and, buying gas, from the pipeline or from an oil and
Yeah.
gas company, what if we just became the oil and gas company ourselves? And so that's where 360 started. And I'd say we were the first to have that business model.
So how did that play out? How did you guys become the owners yourself as opposed to, using the excess and kind of being more in control?
Yeah, we just felt like that was a much safer position to be on the cost curve, on the production cost of, for our data centers. And so, again, leveraging the network, I didn't know anything about oil and gas. And so I could see how it flows through a model, but operating and producing natural gas wells is very different than what Excel would, lead you to believe.
Yep.
As well as, mining Bitcoin in the oil field, by the way, the Excel model, there's a lesson there that real world execution is a lot different than, what your Excel model might imply. I was even more jaded by being a software guy before this, where I just fix a line of code. The real world stuff breaks all the time. But yeah, no, leverage the network to get connected with other oil and gas professionals that could help, shine a light on my blind spots, which was particularly how do I diligence and evaluate and understand what would be a good candidate for what I'm trying to do, which is generate electricity 24/7. And so there's a lot of characteristics that go into a natural gas asset to make it a good fit for something like this. One thing led to another, and there was an asset marketed and in the Barnett Shale, just north of Fort Worth there, that kind of had all the characteristics we were looking for. And that's, we pounced on it, and next thing you know, we're the owner and operator of natural gas wells.
That's incredible. So, okay, so you guys are actually the owner and operator of the natural gas wells, and then you take your Bitcoin mining facility and equipment and overlay those and connect those together. So you're not going to existing owners and saying, hey, let us plug in and kind of revenue share that? Or is it a combo?
So it's a kind of a crazy story, right? And I think it speaks to, again, just the nimbleness of being in a startup and being quick to make decisions and change courses. So we became, again, we looked at the oil field as means to an end, and that end was inexpensive power for my Bitcoin mine. I had no idea the value. That was the value proposition. The oil field was just purely an input to the output, right? What we realized, though, becoming producers and for me myself becoming ingrained in the industry, is that the Bitcoin mine, and the generators as an offtake option for gas is even more powerful as a means to an end for the oil and gas business and the oil and gas industry. How could we leverage this technology to provide real world value to other oil and gas producers? And so, speaking, in 2021, when we first deployed it, it was a dumpster fire trying to get this infrastructure to work and having to redesign it, redeploy it, reinvest, standardize it, optimize it, build the team out, build the software out to manage it. It was a multi-year R&D process to actually do this successfully. But what we realized during that time was, this as an option for gas offtake is powerful. And there's no shortage of natural gas in the United States and elsewhere that is either completely uneconomic or is actively being flared or vented into the atmosphere. And so the uniqueness of this, what we call in-field computing, is the whole stack of generator data center infrastructure. This in-field computing as an option for gas offtake is extremely valuable to provide oil and gas companies with optionality and really an ability to consume gas where pipelines might not be available.
So you mentioned years of R&D and that you're kind of learning on the fly, right? You're kind of seeing what work. You go and buy and operate an asset, but then you're learning more and more as you get ingrained into the industry of kind of how this can evolve and grow. Backing up to like ramping this up to where you are today, are people responsive and to the fundraising process? What did you guys do to go ahead and get, the support to be able to do this? Was it that you were a previously successful founder? How did you guys sell something that I'm sure people just didn't have much experience in investing in?
Yeah, it wasn't easy for sure. I think, past success helps, 4 years out of school and a Rolodex of connections helps. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, again, another lesson as an entrepreneur is you're going to get hundreds of no's and a few yeses,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was no different for us. And yeah, it's about, convincing the right people to take a leap of faith into uh, what this was, and knowing that, it might not be perfect at the start, but we're going to continue to iterate and get better over time. And, with a low time preference and, a longer time horizon, a lot of guys were, willing to make that plunge. And again, it wasn't like we were going to institutional capital. Like it was largely
Right.
high net worth, friends and family, SMU network type fundraising to, piece the cash
Mm-hmm.
together to go actually build this product. And to answer your last question, product and service, right? So our predominant focus now, in addition to operating our own assets, is bringing infield computing as a service to other oil and gas companies. So
Mm-hmm.
targeting guys that are flaring natural gas, guys that are trying to drill wells faster and don't have reliable gas offtake, or guys that are just purely uneconomic on, selling gas to the pipeline, which right now a lot of guys are, especially in West Texas. And so this, as a solution, is generates substantially higher revenues, and in cases where gas is stranded or flared, can kind of rescue that gas and sequester it, which has plenty of environmental benefits and compliance benefits, et
Right.
cetera. So it really is a pretty good 1-2 punch.
It really is. It's an incredible concept, and congrats on the success in such a short time. Can you paint a little bit of a picture for those of us who might not have a visual of what this might look like, right? I'm imagining in the middle of the desert, you've got, big shipping containers, or kind of what is the process of, once either one, an operating asset that you own, or one of those third party companies that you'd mentioned that needs the service.
Yeah.
Where do you guys step in, and what do you provide?
Yeah, no, and you're thinking about it correctly, right? I don't know if you've been to the Permian, but it basically is flat desert land. These are extremely remote locations, far away from civilization in a lot of cases. What's unique about the system is it's modular and designed to be deployed in these harsh remote conditions. And so, you have a generator, a large natural gas generator. It's about 30 feet long, 10 feet wide, 10 feet tall. And so those are skid mounted, ready to go. You pick them up with a crane, you set them down. And then just 10 feet away, we drop, our data centers, which are retrofitted, 40-foot shipping containers. Drop those right next to it. And then inside the data center, you have hundreds of servers that all do the compute function for the Bitcoin mining. And that that is what we call one in-field computing unit. All of that infrastructure is standardized. We use the same stuff every single time, stuff that works. Definitely very different from what we deployed on our first deployment in 21.
Yeah.
And then it really just comes down to gas volume and the contents of the gas. And so obviously if there's more gas, you can deploy more units, right? Not to throw industry vernacular around, but I will, just to kind of size it for those that are maybe more familiar with gas. Each of our units consumes roughly 300,000 cubic feet of gas per day. So if you have more gas, you would be looking at deploying, more units.
And then as a pitch to those listening who potentially have natural gas that could be a fit for this, what are kind of the economics or the value add outside of, right? You have this flare off and stuff that you're protecting that route. What's the partnership look like?
So purely on, forgetting any uplift you might get from, environmental compliance, just purely on dollars in, dollars out. Each of our units costs around $1.5 to $2 million. That would generate roughly $1 million to $1.5 million of EBITDA per year. Right, so you're looking at about a 2-year payback on your investment at current economics. The output of the data centers, in natural gas terms, makes $10 an MCF today. The lowest it ever was $7 an MCF, and the highest, really in Bitcoin's last bull market in 2021, was about $44 an MCF. So, just like oil and gas, this is a commodity production business. The cost of the infrastructure is contingent on the underlying price of the commodity, which is Bitcoin. And so, the CapEx to do it is a lot lower than it was back in 2021. And so we feel like it's, a pretty good time to be deploying it. And how it works operationally is, a lot of oil and gas companies aren't data center guys or power generators. And we weren't in 2021. And that's why we got our teeth kicked in for 2 years trying to figure it out. Right. So we provide it as a service, so these guys don't have to go through the same learning curve that we do.
Right.
And so we deploy our standardized infrastructure, engineer the site, deploy it, commission it, and then we operate it on an ongoing basis. And that's how 360 Mining makes money, is with a revenue interest in what the data center, generates. And so that could be anywhere from 10 to 20% of the revenue. And that's the services business model.
Yeah, incredible. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, and excuse my naivety on Bitcoin here, but from what I understand, and there's a finite amount of Bitcoin, right? Is mining going to last forever? Is there a point in time where we're not mining anymore? Is it just kind of like requires more energy, but is this kind of a sustainable business into the future?
Yeah, great question. I think definitely is sustainable into the future. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin to exist. It's one of the main reasons people love it. It's like the only asset or commodity that's perfectly finite and inelastic. And the issuance of new Bitcoin is also fully predictable and transparent, right? To your point, over time, there's less and less Bitcoin that is mined. And so every 4 years that the available Bitcoin to Bitcoin miners cuts in half until the year 2140, which is 120 years from now, when the last new Bitcoin will be mined. So to answer your question, yes, this is sustainable for the long term because, there's transaction fees in the Bitcoin network, right? And so every time someone buys, sells, trades, or transfers a Bitcoin, those transaction fees go to Bitcoin miners. So as Bitcoin grows in adoption, transaction fees will increase. But it really comes down to your cost of production, right? All the way back to 2021, why we got in this business in the first place. At the end of the day, we're producing a commodity, and we're producing that commodity for less cost than 95% of our competitors globally by vertically integrating on natural gas at pad sites with an otherwise wasted energy resource, right? It doesn't get cheaper power than that, which means that, as there's less and less Bitcoin available, as Bitcoin's price goes down, we can be profitable and economic and online when 95% of our competitors won't be. And so we think, yes, this has 100 years of legs on it, just given the fact that we can produce the commodity cheaper than everybody else. And as people are forced to shut down because they're no longer economic, and this will resonate certainly with oil and gas producers, right? As producers, the highest cost producers of the commodity are the first ones to shut in when the price of the underlying, falls out. And so we'll continue to be economic and be able to stay online, which gives us a higher share of the Bitcoin.
Awesome. And then, so as we wrap up, how can those in SMU who want to connect a little bit more get to you, and also how can, as an alumni base, support you in 360 Mining going forward?
Yeah, you can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. That's where we're most active, and certainly if you're privy to oil and gas and you'd like to learn more about in-field computing, you can drop us a line at sales@360mining.com. I'd be more than happy to tell you about different ways to structure deals and value we could bring to your pad sites.
And I want to make sure we hit, you're in Texas now, but this isn't just exclusive to those in Texas who are producing energy, right? Correct.
Yeah, this is currently just in Texas, but any of the neighboring states, basically anywhere within 8-hour drive of Fort Worth is really where our service range currently is. So Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico, Kansas, Colorado, Arkansas, Mississippi, those are all inbounds. And so basically the South is where we're focused our operations today.
Chris, this has been awesome. Incredible work in your short, exodus from the hilltop. You've been trained well. You've done amazing things. Excited to see where you take 360 Mining and the rest of your career. This has been really fun to watch. And thanks for all your support. You've spoken on one of our panels already. Now you're doing an interview. I promise I won't keep asking you for more and more time, but really appreciate for all you do and give back to SMU. So thanks so much, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for having me. Always wanted to make time for the ponies, man. So yeah, no problem.
Love it.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring that iron skillet home one last time.
Let's do it. Fry the frogs.
See you, Chris.